Hello and welcome to the Newburyport Documentary Film Festival. I am Program Director James Sullivan, and I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but we are ecstatic to be getting ready to show our first live feature film in well over a year for reasons that I'm sure a few of you are aware. We have a really fun film to show on July 8th. I'm going to ask our director Steve to show the poster for briefly so we can take a look at it. This right here. You can see on the other side of me, this is my turntable. Our film is Vinylmation, a documentary dig into the record Resurgence. This is an incredibly fun film about how vinyl records have made the comeback that they've made that we've all heard quite a bit about over the last 10 years or so. But these guys that we have with us today are here to tell us just how they made this film and how I really enjoy this film. I mean, you can see my own turntable behind me, so you know that I am a record junkie myself. But you don't have to be as kooky about records as I am or as the filmmakers are to really get a lot of entertainment out of this film. It's so much fun, and we're thrilled to show it. The film is going to be screening at the Screening Room in Newburyport on July 8th at 7 p.m. And for those of you who can't make it that night or are unwilling to sit in a movie theater for obvious reasons still at this point, we're also going to be making it available to stream virtually through the weekend. So we'll have some more details on that coming up. I am excited to introduce the filmmakers and have a discussion about the film. But first, we'd just like to show you a couple seconds of the trailer that they made so that you get a taste of what the film is going to be like.
Vinyl, it's the only way to make sound solid, like to bring it into our dimension.
Listen, there's something sacred about the whole thing. 12 by 12, 33 RPM.
Putting it on your turntable for the first time and dropping the needle on the record.
It's magical.
It is magical. And again, you know, you don't have to be a vinyl junkie to appreciate the life that's in this film. So let's introduce our two filmmakers, co-directors Kevin Smokler, coming to us from San Francisco. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, James. Thanks for having us.
Happy to have you. Thanks for doing it. And coming from Albuquerque, I believe, right? Christopher Boone.
Hey, James.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Happy to do so. So let's talk about the film, because my first reaction, I'll be honest. I mean, the Houston Chronicle quote says comes across better than any written report of the vinyl resurgence the writer had ever seen. And I took offense to that because I've written a bunch of stories about the vinyl resurgence. But I totally agree. Like, my first reaction was, well, you know, for those of us who care about vinyl records, it's not exactly brand new news that people are into them again. That has been happening for, I'd say, about 10 years. But your film is so the cast of characters is so much fun, so diverse. Everybody's into it for different reasons. It's not just, you know, I keep saying to people, it's not like the comic book guy from The Simpsons, like, you know, endless variations on him and me and people who, you know, the middle-aged dorks who haunt record stores. It's so much more lively than that. And so I commend you guys for doing that. And I think that that's a huge reason why I think that you don't have to be one of those middle-aged comic book, you know, nerds to appreciate the film. So that seems intentional that you guys wanted to make sure that was the case. Let's start there. One of you want to say so, whether in fact that was intentional to make it a more lively version of the story of the vinyl resurgence.
Yeah, this is Kevin. I'm glad you saw that, because what you were saying was completely intentional. When Chris and I started talking about the idea of this movie, it was the spring of 2018, and the vinyl comeback starts, oh God, like 2008, I believe, was the first record store day. So we were 10 years late to the party. Like we were not going to be able to make a movie that was like, hey, did you hear records are coming back? Isn't that interesting? Like that wasn't going to be our story. And so the first thing Chris and I discussed was like, well, then what is the story? And what we came up with was the comeback of vinyl probably means that records are now interesting and available to more and different kinds of people, that it is truly becoming the democratic way to listen to music, the most democratic, small d way to listen to music.
Mm-hmm.
And then we knew based on that the focus had to be on all those different kinds of people. We really backed ourselves into a corner with the title Vinylmation because we came up with that first. And then we're like, okay, well, it has to look like something called The Nation. Like we can't just go to three acclaimed music towns like, you know, New York, Detroit, Nashville, and Austin and call it a day. That's not The Nation. So we knew the movie had to look and sound as much like The Nation as we could. So yeah, the diversity of Vinylmation and all the different kinds of people and their different reasons for loving this way of listening to music was the first thing we thought of when coming up with the film.
Chris, do you want to piggyback on that? Well, let me ask you this. Let's go back for a second. How do you two know each other, and how did the idea for this film first come about?
Sure. So Kevin and I first met in college. We went to college together in Baltimore, Maryland, at Johns Hopkins. We're actually 2 years apart. Kevin was 2 years ahead of me, but we traveled in similar circles. There was a kind of a small community of people who were into film, and we were in the same classes as it related to film studies as a result. So we knew each other then, and we ended up reconnecting just a few years back. Kevin's a writer first, and I'm a filmmaker. And so Kevin was working on his last book, Brat Pack America, a love letter to 80s teen movies. And when it was finished, he reached back out through his social networks and said, hey, I'm doing a book tour, and is there anybody out there who would like to collaborate on events? And Kevin and I, again, had gotten reconnected as he was working on the books. I said, yeah, come on out to Albuquerque. We've got a great local cinema, the Guild Cinema. I know the guy who runs it, Keith, will have a special screening of something like The Breakfast Club or Heather's or something like that. And then afterwards we'll do a Q&A with you and we'll sell some books. And so Kevin did that. He came out, we had a great time. The screening went really well, sold a bunch of books, and Kevin's like, let's do it again. So after doing that like 3-4 times, I don't know how many, it went really well. And then Kevin approached me with this idea that he had for a documentary about vinyl records. And I'm a filmmaker with a background in narrative filmmaking, not documentary, but I'd always thought I would do a documentary film. I just hadn't thought of one yet. And so, Kevin said, are you interested in the resurgence of vinyl records? My family had gotten a turntable back in like 2014. And even though I had like a Fisher-Price record player when I was little, like I was a cassette kid first and then a CD teenager. So really this was my foray into records, but I was really interested in the idea when he brought it to me because I have a teenage daughter and she had gotten her turntable as a teenager. And I was really fascinated at looking at this younger generation who had never owned music in a physical format. And now all of a sudden they were collecting records. And so I wanted to explore that facet of it. And as we talked, kind of more facets revealed themselves. So this idea of Vinylmation and all these different characters started to emerge. So that's really kind of the genesis of the idea.
Kevin, so Chris just told us about his own vinyl experience. What's yours? Did you have vinyl records as a teenager, or you guys are younger than me, so you're probably more like CD era in terms of collecting, right? When you were a younger person, the music that you loved. But what's your own vinyl history?
Yeah, Chris and I are kind of the Sony Walkman generation, which meant like cassettes as a kid and then CDs as a teenager, and then like streaming and downloading was probably intended for us when it first came along in the early aughts.
Right.
My parents were big record people. And they had a big Pioneer stereo system with the giant knobs that looked like the radio knobs on like an old Cadillac or something like that. And but it was like records were definitively like their way of listening to music. And that was probably true for me because I was klutzy as a kid, still am as an adult. And therefore I didn't really trust myself around big fragile pieces of plastic that could break and scratch. And it was coincidentally right around the beginning of vinyl's comeback in 2007, 2008, when I I came into a turntable and an amplifier and a set of speakers for basically no money because a guy I knew was trying to get rid of it. And it just sat on my floor for a while because I didn't really know what to do with it. And then he offered to take me record shopping. And this was in that very brief window of time before the comeback began. And then records were no longer something that, as Billy Fields in our movies says, that like, what does he say, Chris? Something weirdos? Like, I don't remember
Who are the most passionate weirdos?
Passionate weirdos, yeah.
Passionate weirdos.
Yeah, when records were things that still passionate weirdos only did, and so they were cheap. And so I was like, well, records are just a way to like be in music community college forever. This semester is 50s hard bop jazz, and next semester is 80s punk, and after that it's 90s hip hop, and I'll just be learning about music for no money forever. It was cheaper than like downloading tracks $1 at a time. That lasted about 18 months, and then vinyl's comeback began, and it was too late for me at that point. Like I was pretty hooked. And I think a big part of that, as we explain in Vinylmation, is the act of finding records and going to record stores and just spending time in a record filled environment with other people. It doesn't seem like it on its face, but it's an inherently social activity.
There's no question about that. Can you think of what's the first record that comes to mind when you think of your parents' Pioneer stereo system and their record collection?
I mean, my parents had that copy of Sgt. Pepper's that was the triple gatefold and had the like cutouts in the inside where you could punch them out and you could stick the little costumes of each of the 4 Beatles, or you could attach them to a wall or something, and that got me really into the idea. That got me really into inserts. Like, I love the stuff that comes inside records. Yeah, there you go. Be it a poster or be it a something cool, a 45 adapter. Like, records are like Cracker Jack boxes. There's often like a prize in the inside. And I would rather get a lousy version of a record that still had its inserts than a pristine, beautifully mastered version that was basically the record and the cover and nothing else.
All right, so that leads to a good question. I've written books. I get the idea of buying something, whether it's music or literature or whatever, firsthand, full price, so that the royalty money goes to the creator. But I am a used media junkie. I love used record stores. I love used bookstores. And one of the big things about the vinyl resurgence is that the things that actually get reissued now on vinyl are all the classic records that maybe Chris's daughter, her peer group, they're the ones being catered to. Hey, Pink Floyd made a few good records. Hey, the Beatles were pretty good. Hey, Led Zeppelin, they rock. So those records are being reissued now, and they're $35 a pop or whatever. And as a homeowner and a father of 3, I can't go out and afford to pay $35 for a record that I've already owned on 4 different formats. So that kind of drives me a little bit nuts. But obviously, it's the music industry saying, well, we're not making any money on CDs anymore, and we're not making as much money as we'd like from the streaming services. So maybe one way that we can do this is to stick it to Chris's daughter by making her pay $35 for a Led Zeppelin record or whatever, right? So do you guys have thoughts on that? Or, I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I have a few, and then Kevin, I'll let you jump in. We actually have somebody talk to the price issue in our film, just as April Gray talks about that. And while it can be painful to shell out $35 for a new record, as she points out, if you look at records cost $8 to $10 in like 1977, 1978, and do inflation, they cost $30 to $35 today. And the process to make records hasn't changed in decades. Like, it's a very manual, hands-on process. And when you see the film, that's one of my favorite parts. Like, we show you how records are made, and we go to multiple pressing plants, and it's really beautiful, but it is very hands-on and it's very intensive. And when you do make anything like that, it's going to cost money. So while it feels expensive, it's just what things would cost in 2021. To the point about my daughter getting stuck with this price, my daughter, just like her generation, loves thrift shops. So she actually buys records for less money most of the time than I do. And I'm usually the beneficiary of it because she sees something like, I think my dad might like this. I'm not really sure. It costs $1. I'll give it to him. And she's like, it doesn't mean anything to her. And she's definitely attracted to album art. So she'll take a chance on stuff herself. And again, if it's no good, well, then she'll give it to somebody else, or she'll turn it into, I don't know, a bowl or something like that, much to the dismay of music lovers. But again, she's more experimental that way. Also, record stores, certainly they make their margins on their used records, and we want them to stay in business. And so it is the fun of digging. It's inherent to used records. So you just never know what's in the bin. So any good record store, whether or not they sell new with used vinyl or just used records, like, people are going to keep coming back because they just don't know what's in the bins, and those profit margins keep them going. But a lot of stores do carry that new vinyl to keep the younger people coming in. I buy plenty of new vinyl because if I like something, it's because I probably listened to it on Spotify a number of times, and I go, they're not making enough money for me listening to it, so I want to own this. And I'm an album person as well. I'd like to listen to the whole thing. So I'm going to go buy it on vinyl. And, if it's a current artist, then that's going to be new vinyl. And so I may not buy a lot of records, but I will make that commitment to spend that money as a commitment to that artist. Kevin, what are some of your thoughts on the price of records today as it relates to before?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with new vinyl is if you're fortunate enough to have a great record store in your town that focuses on new vinyl, like the ones we featured in the movie, like Park Avenue CDs in Orlando or Amoeba here in San Francisco, lucky you. You've got an easy place to shop for new vinyl. If you don't have one of those places, you're getting your new vinyl at Best Buy or Walmart or something like that, which is functional, but not a fun, like a joyous way to shop for records, or you're ordering them online. Those are all easy ways to get new vinyl, but that does not bring forth the joy of shopping for records. If you don't have a brand new vinyl record store in your town, you can get used records at a lot more different kinds of places than you can new vinyl. You don't need to officially call yourself a record store or a retailer in order to carry new vinyl. You can be a thrift store. You can be, Chris and I have been to like hair salons that have a few crates of used vinyl and are like, enjoy. So used vinyl is just more available, and it's something unique to records too. There is a thriving used record trade in a way there is not a thriving used CD trade, or used cassette trade. A little bit, but not much. So I think that's really important, and I think the $35 price point is intimidating. Like Chris, I try and buy the brand new album by an artist I love on new vinyl just because it's good for them. And it also then I don't feel like a useless old person who isn't interested in new records. I try and stay at least a little bit educated on what's coming out, musically speaking. And also, I think, James, you make a good point. You want to be careful that you're not just buying, the 17th version of Michael Jackson's Thriller because they decided, it's been 18 months and we'll put a gold border around this one and charge you $45 for it. You don't want to. Those things are done for a very cynical reason, particularly for an album that is as ubiquitous as Michael Jackson's Thriller. So
you're saying the music industry is cynical?
It can be, and don't fall for that. This is something I have to tell young people, Chris's daughter's age, all the time. It's like, it is very tempting to get a shiny brand new version of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors if that's the album you're looking for. The world is awash in used copies of Fleetwood Mac's Rumors. They probably give them to you when you buy property these days. So so don't spend $40 on a new version of a record where you can get a perfectly good used one for $10.
And every record store will buy a copy of Rumors whenever they find it, because it will sell out in 24 hours, guaranteed. And I'm not even making it up. As soon as they put it on the shelf, someone will come into that store, most likely a young person, and they will purchase that copy of Rumors. So yes, there are definitely records that I think Kevin and I probably don't have in our collections that neither of us are buying new because we know we're going to find it used someday, and we just kind of refuse to buy the reissued version because it's like, I I don't want that, especially because the reissue version might be on 2 discs. I'm like, I don't want it on 2 discs.
Right.
I don't want to flip the record after 3 songs. Like, I don't want it because it's an original pressing. I just want it the way it was originally intended. And I know at some point in time I will come across it, and I have to be patient. If I'm really impatient, yes, I can go on Discogs, but that's no fun. Like, I want to discover it when I'm flipping through the racks and then like realize I've waited so long to find this. Here it is. Yes.
Discogs, for those who don't know, is the one-stop shopping place online where if you are having an impossible time finding that one elusive record, some dealer on there, it's like the eBay of used records basically, and somebody will have it. And I do use it sometimes still for that very specific thing that I know isn't going to turn up in any of the 10 Boston area record stores that I frequent anytime soon. But I feel a little bit bad about it every time. I want to go back to something Kevin was just saying about just sort of the process of discovery and how much fun and actually how social. You go to a record store, you feel like everybody's just in their own little bubble looking at their own row of records, but it is a social, people start these conversations about certain records, or do you know more about Canned Heat than I do, or whatever, what's their best album? And that stuff goes on all the time. And I find myself, if I have an hour to kill on a weekend, and I want to take a drive, I'll go to, I'll take a 45-minute drive to a record store that I know has a huge selection. And these days, my favorite thing to do is go directly for their used new arrivals section, which is the good stuff that they just brought in, just bought off the street from somebody who's looking to liquidate their record collection. And so you have no idea what you're going to find, but you always find gems because they haven't been picked through yet. And they, the other collectors haven't already discovered that stuff in that store. What has the response been to? I know you guys have screened the film quite a bit over the course of the pandemic, the past year or so, right? Were you able to have? You weren't able to have very many in-person screenings, I assume, right?
I don't think. I think we're just at the beginning of being able to have in-person screenings. A year and a half after we finished tied the bow on the movie. Is that right, Chris?
Virtually everything has been virtual, as been necessitated by the pandemic itself. So yes, these are playing with Newburyport and supporting Newburyport Film Festival with a special screening is one of the few in-person screenings I think we've had. So we're really excited that members of your community are going to be able to gather to actually see it together, because that's the experience every filmmaker wants. But I think with our film in particular, we discovered after shooting the footage that what we had made wasn't necessarily just a film about the resurgence of vinyl records, but it's really a film about human connection. And while it's great to watch it in the comfort of your own home, it's even better to see it with an audience. So neither Kevin nor I have had that opportunity yet. So we too look forward to the day where we can actually sit with an audience and experience the film with them.
Absolutely. It's just now getting to that point, and we are super happy that a town like Newburyport with a fantastic record store like Dino Records, like Chris and I haven't gotten to go to a lot of these places. So in our mind's eye and in our wildest imagination, the record store and the movie theater are always right next to each other. So we could see the movie with the audience and then be like, and now digging, and like just march next door and go and spend a bunch of time and money and camaraderie and companionship in the record store. We're guessing that's probably not the case because that's our fantasy, but we just really appreciate Newburyport wanting to make our movie part of this reopening that is happening in movie theaters all over the country, and that you guys are fortunate enough to have an amazing record store like Dino in town. Like it's record stores are not rare these days, thanks in large part to the comeback of vinyl, but a good one is still a special thing no matter what.
They're actually about a block apart. You could easily
wow,
Pied Piper excursion from the movie theater to the record store, no problem.
Fantastic.
Again, I loved what you just said about Chris, about the film is not even really necessarily so much about records as it is about human connection. That's kind of what I was trying to articulate at the beginning of what I said. It is definitely about people and the things that they're passionate for, and how music can thoroughly enhance our lives. And that comes through loud and clear. So I'll just say again, it's a real delight to watch your movie and to be able to present it live upcoming. What do you guys have coming up next for the film? Are you trying to, now that things are opening up, are you able to scramble and put together a bit of an itinerary for live screenings, or has that ship sailed a little bit since you finished a year and a half ago?
The pandemic has stranded all the ships in the harbor, so like nobody knows what's the entire film world, particularly in documentaries, is kind of turned upside down and backwards. We have some festival dates for the rest of the summer and on into the fall, and some. We've had some nice opportunities associated with the Record Store Day organization, who we've become friends with over doing this. And then I think, I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but if we've learned anything through the course of this, like we've sort of taken opportunities as we've seen them and ran with them. And then inevitably, as we're running, another one comes along. So the movie, for being released under the worst possible set of conditions, has had a really long life, and I think I think we predict it will keep spinning for a little while.
Yeah, it's felt like actually that because it's been this extended run in a variety of different formats, and like Kevin said, we're still playing with festivals and more coming up, and as things are getting better, there are going to be more live screenings at those festivals. Like I feel like our movie just keeps getting discovered, just like the records in the bin at the record store. Like we would think, like, have we touched? Haven't we touched probably most? No, we haven't even gotten close. We literally have not scratched the surface yet. So it's been really fun to bring it to other parts of the country, and all of a sudden discover a whole new group of record fans and record lovers, and then people who aren't into records whatsoever. We have met people through the course of screening our film virtually and at festivals who said, I don't have a turntable, I haven't collected records, and now all I want to do is buy a turntable and start collecting records. So be forewarned, if you don't have a turntable, you very well may be looking for one as soon as you finish watching Vinylmation.
So I saw what you both did there. Kevin, you said something about keeping the film spinning. And Chris said something about we've just barely scratched the surface. That's good. Get records into every conversation.
That's right.
We didn't invent those little tricks. We talked to enough people, enough people who love records, and it just kind of comes up naturally.
All right. So I think we're pretty good. We hope that those who watch some of this interview are as excited as I am to watch the film again, or in their case, for the first time. Thanks so much for being here and talking to us about Vinylmation. And congratulations again on making a super fun documentary in a time when we need something super fun to be attracted to. So appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Our pleasure, James. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Good talking to you.